Yes, welcome everyone. The Marijuana Times Show for November 27th, 2017. I'm your host, Joe Klare. You can find myself and a bunch of other great writers over at marijuanatimes.org. Help us spread the truth about cannabis. Help us make cannabis great again. That's right. Slogan. You find these videos where you can share them. You can also find, as I said, a lot of other great writers writing about the cannabis community and the industry, all the latest that you need to know, news, opinion, all that stuff. marijuanatimes.org. Great place to go find everything that you need. New week here, the Marijuana Times Show. Today we've got some interesting stories, including one about weed and the stock market. That's right. Legal marijuana is growing up. Also, new rules and regulations in Colorado take effect in the new year. And also, a possible Supreme Court decision in Canada could wreck some government officials' plans for government-run monopolies when it comes to legal cannabis in Canada. We'll talk about all that. But first, of course, I'll tell you the Marijuana Times Show is brought to you by Natureside Cannabis.com. I just mentioned those new regulations in Colorado. Some of those have to do with pesticides. There's been a lot of news stories as of late about harmful pesticides being found in legal cannabis. You can eliminate all of those problems. You can pass regulations. You can have a safe, all-natural, organic, pest-controlled product that you sell to your customers. Excuse me. Naturesidecannabis.com. Go check them out. Not only do they have the products you need, they can help you be regulatory compliant, let you know what to do, exactly what to do. Places like Colorado and California and Oregon and Washington and beyond. If you're a cannabis cultivator, you have to check out Naturesidecannabis.com, a proud sponsor of the Marijuana Times Show. Our first story is from marijuanatimes.org. First ever U.S. traded marijuana fund is coming to the New York Stock Exchange. This is a story by Jason Sander over at marijuanatimes.org. As I mentioned, Jason writes, one of the latest successes in the legal weed world is the fact that a marijuana fund will be trading on the New York Stock Exchange starting December 26th, 2017. Of course, that's the day after Christmas. Formerly a real estate exchange-traded fund called Tierra XP Latin American Real Estate. This ETF is now switching its focus towards the green rush of legal herb. The exchange-traded fund is now being called Alternative Agroscience. The original real estate fund has been trading since 2015. In a filing made to the Securities and Exchange Commission in October, fund investors said they're changing both the name of the fund and its, quote, underlying index and investment objective. Now, the new objective of the ETF will be to track and index cannabis companies that are engaged in the legal cultivation, production, distribution of cannabis products. Excuse me again, I'm overcoming a little bit of under the weather-ness, if that is a word, and I know it is not, but that's what I'm getting over, some under the weatherness. The fund will also track pharmaceutical companies that make cannabinoid-related drugs, as well as keeping an eye on fertilizer and pesticide companies. It's one of the many, many, many examples, if I may use the word many one too many times, of how legal marijuana has changed. I mean, if you were sitting around with your friends even 10 years ago and you were talking about, well, one day they'll be keeping track of weed stocks on the New York Stock Exchange, well, your buddies probably would have said you were crazy. You'd be that crazy guy that was talking about that stuff all the way back then. Who's crazy now? It's a thing. Incredible. And it all goes back to and toward the mainstreaming, if you will, of cannabis. One day it'll be just as commonplace in everyday life as alcohol. You go to a cocktail party, you see someone drinking a glass of wine, you don't think anything of it. Well, maybe you think, where can I get a glass of wine? But that's all you think of it. Someday you'll just walk in somewhere, somebody be smoking a joint, you'll just be, well, that's a normal thing. That's what a lot of people do. It is what a lot of people do, but it's not in the pop culture. It's not in the ether, if you will, the collective consciousness, if there is such a thing, of people. But one day it will be. And things like this, well, it helps that along. Mentioned, as I said, new regulations and rules are taking effect in Colorado. This story is from the Cannabis. Changes to the rules governing Colorado's cannabis industry go into effect January 1st, including a groundbreaking path for in-state research projects. The State Marijuana Enforcement Division finalized and released new rules for licensed medical and recreational businesses. Highlights include new packaging and label requirements for flowers, concentrates, and edibles. Top official with the Colorado Department of Revenue told the Cannabis, this is Mike Hartman, Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Revenue. He said, we tried to clean up some of the white noise that is out there. He said the labeling changes that are intended to help consumers with information related to public health and safety. Another significant change is the adoption of licenses for conducting research and cultivating marijuana for such projects. The new rules are the result of legislation passed earlier this year. House Bill 171367 opened the door for private public research projects on cannabis grown and processed in Colorado. The regulations require any transfers of cannabis for research purposes to utilize the state's existing inventory tracking system. Hartman continued, quote, this is an industry. We just don't have the educational information that we have in other industries. There needs to be more research around the product. And, it's hard to argue with that. How these regulations affect the legal marijuana market obviously will remain to be seen. But Hartman says he thinks they've struck the right balance when it comes to existing laws and where they want to go moving forward in Colorado. Again, it's just every one of these stories is about how the interesting and seemingly gathering momentum that legal cannabis has, especially in states where it's established now, like Colorado and Washington. And it's soon going to be like that in, Alaska and California and Oregon and in Nevada, and just all the states are legalizing recreational marijuana. Things are moving very quickly. In January, it'd be 4 years, just 4 years since Colorado became the first state to open up retail stores for cannabis. 4 short years, they're already tweaking the law and regulations, altering regulations. The great experiment continues, although I hate using that word, experiment. I mean, I know that's technically what it is, but it wasn't. We knew what was coming. I don't want to sound condescending, but I think at this point I can't help it. We who advocated for legalization way before 2012, 2010, we knew what would happen. If teen use wouldn't go up, car fatalities wouldn't go up, use really wouldn't go up, especially among younger people. It has gone up somewhat for older people. All the things that we said would happen with legalization, and came true, and all the things that opponents of legalization said would happen, well, those things didn't happen. We're still waiting. We're still waiting in places like Colorado and Washington for the sky to fall, and it's not going to happen. This last story comes from globalnews.ca out of old Canada, our neighbors up to the north. Says, will a Supreme Court case end provinces' pot monopolies before legal stores even open? And I've talked some about this, and I've written some about this. The fact that places like Quebec and Ontario, their plan is to sell legal marijuana, but to sell it in government-run stores. They have government-run monopolies. I have been of the opinion, and I always will be, because I believe I'm right, that this is a horrible idea. A horrible idea. If you want good quality product for a good quality price and a steady supply, government-run monopolies are not the way to go. Monopolies of any kind are not the way to go. Reliable supply comes from, competitors getting into the business. If there's no competitors, what incentive do these stores have to do a good job? What would be the point? What incentive do they have to provide good customer service? What incentive do they have to make sure that they have the strain you need? If they don't, what are you going to do about it? Go to the other legal store? No, they're all government run. They're all run by the same people. It doesn't matter. Now, of course, in real life and practical terms, what will happen is people will go back to the black market. So it undercuts, I talked about this the other day, it undercuts so much of what legalization is supposed to be about. Legalization is supposed to be about undercutting the black market price-wise and driving criminals and violent elements out of the industry and replacing them with legal, reputable, upstanding business people who pay taxes and belong to the Chamber of Commerce and give to charity and so on and so forth and create jobs and economic activity. But that doesn't happen. The competition is the key, is one of the major keys to that. It's one of the major economic pillars that underpins the possible success of the legal marijuana industry is competition. Well, in any case, on December 6th, the Canadian Supreme Court begins hearing arguments in a case that could mean the end of state-run monopolies as they apply to another favorite Canadian vice, alcohol. And these plans for marijuana, they come from, they're structured on the alcohol, the way alcohol is sold in Canada. But the point of this story is, if the justices rule in favor of this New Brunswick man fighting against provincial liquor monopolies, the decision will most certainly trigger lawsuits across the country seeking to dismantle similar government-run corporations for marijuana, according to legal and trade experts. So even before places like Quebec and Ontario have a chance to have some kind of government-run monopolies, they may be shot down by the Canadian Supreme Court, which will be the best thing to happen for cannabis consumers in Canada. I understand the Canadian government is just wants so badly to control and restrict and regulate cannabis and control who gets it. But that's what Prohibition attempted to do, as I said a couple shows ago. Maybe it was last show, I don't know. You can go back and look. Competition is what is needed. More. What's wrong with more competition? Somehow legal weed will get in the wrong hands. Well, it's already getting in people's hands. It's from the black market. See, this argument would make more sense. It still wouldn't make complete sense at all because it's economically unsound. But if there was no black market and the only place you could get marijuana was legal government-run stores, that'd be a different issue. See, they haven't eliminated competition. They've eliminated legal competition. And most of their competition is going to come from illegal sources, which, again, undercuts one of the main pro points in the column of marijuana legalization. But it's something I've said since Trudeau took over in Canada. You could tell in the Liberal Party, historically, and the left-leaning politics in Canada and elsewhere, lean towards more government control. It's not going to help here. It's going to lead to poor quality, poor customer service, shortages, and people being unhappy. And they want to express their unhappiness by, when they may sign petitions and protest and all that stuff, and that's great. But the main way they'll show their unhappiness is they won't buy it. They'll go to their guy or their friend or whoever. They'll grow it illegally themselves. Because now they're talking about eliminating home growing. We talked about that on the show too. Eliminating home growing in Canada. So the black market, if these plans stand, is going to be alive and well in Canada for a long time to come. I don't know. I don't think that's the way to do it. But again, as I've said many times before, who am I but a lone video news, cannabis news show host, writer guy? Who am I but him? Thanks, everybody. This has been the Marijuana Time Show for November 27, 2017. You can not only find the show now on YouTube and Facebook, you can also find it on iTunes, and it'll be on Stitcher soon as well. Go to iTunes and search The Marijuana Times, and you will find it. Go to marijuanatimes.org as well to share all these videos. And go like us on Facebook. Thank you to Natureside Cannabis, proud sponsor of the show, all natural, organic, pesticides, Natureside Cannabis. They are great. If you want to sponsor the show, email us at info@marijuanatimes.org. Let us know you want to be a sponsor of the show, and we will see about hooking that up. Thank you all for checking out another episode of the Marijuana Times Show. Until next time, I am Joe Klare. Thanks, everybody.